8 common fruits that quietly raise stroke risk in seniors overnight. Yes, you heard that right. Not salty snacks, not fried food, but fruit. The stuff we've been told is always healthy. Surprised? You're not alone. Most seniors grew up believing fruit was the safest choice, full of vitamins, fiber, and natural sweetness. And in many ways, it still is. But what if I told you that after the age of 60, your body doesn't handle fruit the same way it used to? That banana you love with your breakfast, the bowl of grapes you snack on with the grandkids, even that refreshing slice of watermelon after dinner. All of them could quietly be increasing your risk of a stroke, especially if you're eating them at the wrong time or in the wrong combination. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. How can something so natural be dangerous? Or maybe you're on the other side, nodding your head because you felt those subtle signs. Morning dizziness, heart palpitations, or sudden fatigue after what seemed like a healthy snack. Whatever your view, this video will open your eyes. Backed by real patient stories and scientific insights, we're diving deep into 8 specific fruits that can quietly affect seniors' health when not eaten properly. But before we jump into the list, do me a quick favor. Hit that like button to support our mission. Share this video with someone you care about. And subscribe so you never miss an update on how to protect your brain and body as you age. Now, are you ready to find out which fruits made the list? Let's get started. How the body changes after 60. Have you ever noticed that something as simple as a piece of fruit feels different in your body than it did 20 years ago? That's not in your head, it's physiology. After 60, your body isn't just older, it's biologically different. As a physician who spent decades treating patients over 60, I can tell you, what once helped your health can now silently work against it, especially when it comes to diet. Let's start with the liver. Your liver is the body's detox center. But by the time you reach your 60s, blood flow to the liver can decrease by nearly 40%, which slows down how efficiently it processes both sugar and medications. That means a glass of orange juice or a bowl of mango, when combined with your daily statin or blood thinner, might overwhelm your liver and cause your medications to build up dangerously. Your kidneys also take a hit with age. They're responsible for balancing key minerals like potassium and sodium and for regulating blood pressure. But by age 70, your filtration rate may drop by 30–40%. This makes high potassium fruits, like bananas or oranges, potentially risky, especially if you're on blood pressure meds or have reduced kidney function. According to the National Kidney Foundation, excess potassium in seniors is a growing cause of arrhythmia and other heart complications. Then there's your blood vessels. With age, they stiffen. If you've had high blood pressure, diabetes, or smoked in the past, you're at higher risk. That loss of flexibility makes it harder for your body to manage sudden spikes in blood sugar, like the kind that happens after eating sweet fruits such as grapes, pineapple, or watermelon. This can inflame small vessels in the brain, quietly raising your risk for mini strokes, also known as transient ischemic attacks, TIAs. And let's not forget dehydration. As we get older, our sense of thirst diminishes, and our bodies don't retain water like they used to. Add in diuretics, common blood pressure medications, or warm climates, and you're left with thicker blood that flows more slowly. When this happens at night, especially if you've eaten diuretic fruits like watermelon or pineapple before bed, it creates the perfect conditions for a stroke while you sleep. So let me ask you, have you ever felt unusually dizzy in the morning or had sudden speech slurring after a nighttime fruit snack? Have you ever considered how your medication and meals interact? Most people don't, but it's critical especially at this stage in life. Here's my advice from clinic to camera. Eat fruit earlier in the day, never on an empty stomach, and always pair it with a source of protein or healthy fat. Stay hydrated with water, not just watery fruits. And if you're taking medications, ask your doctor specifically about food interactions. Your body's different now, and your approach to healthy eating should be too. Fruit number 1, overripe bananas, the hidden spike of sugar and potassium. Many people over 60 still believe grabbing a ripe banana in the morning is the healthiest way to start the day. But when that banana is overripe, soft, and speckled, it may be doing more harm than good. As bananas ripen, their starch turns into sugar, increasing their glycemic index. This causes a sharp rise in blood sugar, something aging bodies can't manage as efficiently. On top of that, bananas are high in potassium, which, while beneficial in moderation, can become risky if your kidneys aren't filtering it properly. And that's often the case after age 60, especially for those on blood pressure or heart medications. Helen, a 73-year-old retired teacher from Oregon, started each morning with 2 ripe bananas. She thought she was eating clean, sometimes blending them into smoothies with nothing else. One morning, she woke up dizzy and confused. Her husband noticed she couldn't speak clearly. At the hospital, she was diagnosed with a mild ischemic stroke. Her blood tests showed elevated potassium and dehydration. Doctors linked it to a combination of ripe bananas, no protein at breakfast, and a lack of morning hydration. This doesn't mean bananas are bad, but context matters. After 60, our bodies don't tolerate sudden sugar spikes or electrolyte imbalances the way they used to. If you're going to eat bananas, choose ones that are just ripe, not overripe. Never eat them on an empty stomach. Pair them with protein, like eggs, yogurt, or nuts, to slow sugar absorption. And drink a glass of water beforehand to reduce the impact of morning dehydration. If you're taking medications that affect blood pressure or kidney function, talk to your doctor about how much potassium is safe for you. Have you ever felt lightheaded after a fruit-heavy breakfast? Do you find that your healthy routines leave you feeling off balance? These are signs your body is asking you to adjust. In your 60s and beyond, it's not just what you eat, but how and when you eat it that matters most. Fruit number 2, grapes, sugar hiding behind a sweet face. Grapes may seem like an innocent, healthy snack, but for people over 60, they can quietly cause trouble if eaten the wrong way. While small and refreshing, grapes are surprisingly high in natural sugars, around 23 grams per cup, and they're absorbed quickly into the bloodstream. As we age, our insulin response slows and our blood vessels become more fragile, making our bodies more vulnerable to sudden sugar spikes. These quick increases in blood sugar can trigger inflammation in tiny blood vessels, especially those in the brain, raising the risk of mini-strokes known as TIAs. Walter, a 78-year-old retired saxophone player from Chicago, used to enjoy 2 cups of red grapes every morning. He believed it was a clean, heart-healthy snack. But one morning, as he was writing a card for his grandson, his hand began to shake and he couldn't spell a simple word. He had suffered a mild TIA. His blood sugar had surged, and tests showed signs of chronic inflammation and early prediabetes. Doctors advised him to make small adjustments, and now he eats only a few grapes at a time, about 6 to 8, and always after a source of protein like almonds or cheese. This slows the sugar absorption and prevents the dramatic spikes that once put him at risk. Current research supports this approach. Studies in journals like Stroke have shown that repeated sugar spikes are a major contributor to microvascular damage in seniors. For older adults, fruit is not off-limits, but timing and food pairing matter. If you tend to eat grapes by the handful or snack on fruit by itself, it may be time to rethink that habit. Ask yourself, do you feel tired or foggy after eating fruit alone? That could be your body struggling to balance itself. A simple adjustment like adding protein or reducing portion size can protect your brain and keep your sugar levels steady. Fruit number 3, pineapple, when bromelain thins the blood too much. Pineapple may look like a smart, healthy choice, especially when you're trying to cut back on sweets. But for people over 60, especially those taking blood thinners, it can quietly increase health risks. This tropical fruit contains bromelain, a natural enzyme that can interfere with blood clotting. While bromelain can help with inflammation and digestion, it also has a blood-thinning effect. When combined with medications like aspirin, warfarin, or Plavix, it may increase the risk of internal bleeding, including in the brain. Diane, a 75-year-old church organist, used to enjoy pineapple slices after dinner, thinking it was a healthier dessert. But she was also on blood thinners for a heart condition. One morning, she woke up dizzy and unable to balance properly. Tests at the hospital revealed a minor brain bleed. Doctors connected it to the bromelain in the pineapple, amplifying the effects of her medication. They also found signs of nighttime acid reflux, something she hadn't even noticed. Besides bromelain, pineapple is high in natural sugar and acid. The acidity can silently trigger reflux during sleep. When small amounts of acid reach the throat or airways, oxygen to the brain can drop without warning. That kind of low oxygen stress is linked to early morning strokes, something doctors see often in seniors. If you enjoy pineapple, you don't have to eliminate it entirely. But you should eat it earlier in the day, in small amounts, and always with food, not on an empty stomach. Avoid eating it at night, especially if you take blood-thinning medications or have a history of acid reflux. Pay attention to any dizziness, headaches, or sleep issues, and talk to your doctor if you notice anything unusual. As we age, food isn't just about taste, it's about timing, balance, and safety. Fruit number 4, watermelon, the illusion of hydration that leads to dehydration. Watermelon is known for being hydrating, but for people over 60, especially those on diuretics, it can quietly cause more harm than good. While it's true that watermelon is over 90% water, it also acts as a natural diuretic. This means it increases urine output, and when combined with medications that already flush fluids from the body, it can lead to overnight dehydration. For seniors, that dehydration can thicken the blood, slow circulation, and raise the risk of clot-related strokes, particularly while sleeping, when blood flow naturally decreases. Thomas, an 81-year-old retired postal worker, regularly ate 2 or 3 large slices of watermelon after dinner to cool off and stay hydrated. He was also taking water pills for high blood pressure. One morning, he woke up dizzy and collapsed when trying to stand. At the hospital, he was diagnosed with a mild ischemic stroke. Tests showed he was dehydrated and that his blood had thickened during the night, increasing the chance of clot formation. As we age, our sense of thirst weakens and the body's ability to hold onto water declines. This makes proper hydration more complex. According to the National Institutes of Health, even mild dehydration in older adults can lead to higher blood viscosity, which is a known risk factor for strokes. If you're eating watermelon at night thinking it's keeping you hydrated, it may be doing the opposite, especially if you're also on blood pressure medications or diuretics. My advice is to enjoy watermelon earlier in the day and always in moderation. Don't eat it alone late at night, and if you're using it to hydrate, pair it with a small pinch of salt or a bit of coconut water to help retain fluids. At this stage in life, hydration isn't just about drinking water, it's about doing it smart. Fruit number 5, oranges and orange juice, blocking the liver's ability to process medications. Oranges and orange juice are often seen as symbols of a healthy lifestyle, but for people over 60 who take daily medications, they can pose an unexpected risk. Citrus fruits like oranges contain natural compounds called furanocomerins, which interfere with liver enzymes responsible for breaking down medications. When this process is disrupted, drugs like blood pressure meds, statins, or blood thinners can accumulate in the body, making them stronger than intended and potentially dangerous. Barbara, a 77-year-old retired bus driver, had a routine of drinking orange juice with her breakfast and medications. Over time, she began feeling lightheaded in the mornings and once fainted while walking outside. Tests showed that her medication levels were too high, even though her doses hadn't changed. Her doctors traced it back to the orange juice, which was quietly blocking her liver's ability to process her prescriptions. This isn't rare. The FDA has long warned that grapefruit and similar citrus fruits can cause dangerous interactions with over 85 different medications. Orange juice, while less concentrated than grapefruit, can still interfere depending on the variety and how much you drink. If you're taking medications, especially for blood pressure, cholesterol, or heart conditions, avoid pairing them with orange juice. Instead, take your pills with water, and if you want a citrus flavor, a small splash of lemon or lime in water is a safer option. And if you've ever felt unusually weak, dizzy, or foggy after your morning routine, consider whether your drink might be part of the problem. At this stage in life, even a glass of juice needs a second look. Fruit number 6, ripe and dried mango, sugar overload and liver slowdown. Mango may seem like a healthy tropical treat, but for people over 60, especially those taking heart medications, it can pose hidden dangers. 1 cup of ripe mango contains about 45 grams of sugar, more than a donut. That kind of sugar spike can stress aging blood vessels and increase inflammation, particularly in the brain. But the bigger issue is a compound called mangiferin, found in mango, which can interfere with liver enzymes responsible for metabolizing many medications. When the liver is slowed down, medications like blood pressure or heart rhythm drugs can build up in the bloodstream and become toxic. Edward, an 84-year-old retired firefighter, thought he was making a healthy choice by replacing sweets with dried mango slices every afternoon. But he was also on medication for atrial fibrillation and high blood pressure. A few weeks later, he began feeling dizzy in the mornings and eventually collapsed getting out of bed. Doctors diagnosed him with a mild stroke. His medication levels were dangerously high, not because of incorrect dosing, but because his liver wasn't processing them efficiently, thanks to his daily mango habit. If you eat mango or dried mango and take medications, it's important to understand how they interact. Dried mango is even more concentrated in sugar and mangofarin. If you're on heart or blood pressure meds, talk to your doctor before making mango a daily snack. Eat it only in small amounts, earlier in the day, and never on an empty stomach. Pairing it with protein or fat like nuts or cheese can help slow the sugar absorption. At this stage of life, even a fruit you've always loved needs to be eaten with intention and awareness. Fruit number 7. Cherries, delicious but loaded with acid and sugar. Cherries are sweet, juicy, and often seen as a healthy snack. But for people over 60, especially those sensitive to blood sugar or acid reflux, they can quietly disrupt your health. Cherries are naturally high in both sugar and acid, and when eaten late in the day, particularly cold, they can trigger a spike in blood glucose and silent acid reflux, especially during sleep. Ruth, a 79-year-old oil painter, loved enjoying a bowl of cold cherries in the evening after painting. But over time, she noticed she wasn't sleeping well, waking up often and feeling unsteady in the mornings. One morning, she nearly fell getting out of bed. After consulting with her doctor, they realized her evening cherry habit was to blame. The sugar was spiking her blood sugar before bed, and the acidity was causing reflux that she didn't feel but which affected her oxygen levels at night. Research shows that acid reflux, even without classic heartburn symptoms, can disrupt deep sleep and lower oxygen to the brain. This kind of silent reflux is a known risk factor for strokes and balance issues, especially in the early morning hours. Plus, sugar spikes late in the day can leave you feeling groggy and unstable when you wake up. If you enjoy cherries, try eating them earlier in the day and keep portions small. Don't eat them cold or on an empty stomach. Pairing them with a little fat or protein, like a few almonds or a slice of cheese, can help slow the sugar absorption. And if you're waking up feeling off, consider whether your fruit habits may be part of the issue. At this stage in life, timing matters just as much as what you eat. Fruit number 8. Green apples, great for the young, challenging for the aging digestive system. Green apples are often considered a smart snack, low in sugar, high in fiber, and full of tart flavor. But for older adults, especially those with slower digestion or sensitive stomachs, they can quietly trigger discomfort. Their high acidity combined with tough, insoluble fiber can irritate an empty stomach, leading to cramping, diarrhea, and sudden drops in blood pressure. Jack, an 82-year-old retired mechanical engineer, made a habit of eating a green apple every morning before breakfast. He thought it was a clean, healthy way to start the day. But after a few weeks, he began feeling bloated, occasionally rushed to the bathroom, and one morning nearly passed out from a sudden dizzy spell. His doctor explained that the combination of stomach acid and insoluble fiber on an empty gut was too much for his aging digestive system to handle. As we age, our stomachs produce less acid-neutralizing enzymes, and our gastrointestinal tract becomes more sensitive to high-acid foods. The fiber that was once beneficial can now act like sandpaper if not balanced with other nutrients. If you're over 60 and notice stomach issues or dizziness after eating apples, especially on an empty stomach, consider switching to riper apples, peeling the skin, and pairing them with oatmeal or a slice of cheese. This helps buffer the acid, soften digestion, and stabilize blood sugar. At this stage of life, it's not about avoiding fruit, it's about respecting how your body responds to it. How to eat fruit safely after 60. As we get older, our bodies process food differently, and fruit, while still healthy, needs to be eaten with more care. The first rule is to enjoy fruit during the daytime, ideally after a meal. Eating fruit on an empty stomach or right before bed can lead to sugar spikes, acid reflux, or even dehydration overnight, especially when paired with medications. Second, never eat fruit alone. Pairing it with a little protein or healthy fat, like nuts or cheese, helps slow down sugar absorption and keeps your blood sugar levels more stable. This can help reduce the risk of dizziness, fatigue, or even stroke-like symptoms in the morning. Another key point is medication. Many people over 60 are on prescriptions for blood pressure, cholesterol, or heart conditions. Some fruits, like oranges, mangoes, and grapefruit, can interfere with how these drugs are processed in the liver. Always ask your doctor whether the fruits you enjoy could interact with your meds. Lastly, remember that portion size matters. You don't need to eliminate fruit, but you should stick to smaller servings. A few slices, not a whole bowl. Moderation protects your digestion, blood sugar, and overall balance. These habits aren't about restriction, they're about smarter choices. Eating fruit wisely helps protect your brain, heart, and independence as you age. So there you have it, 8 common fruits that, while healthy for many, can become quiet threats for seniors when eaten the wrong way. Bananas, grapes, pineapple, watermelon, orange juice, mangoes, cherries, and green apples. Each one holds potential benefits, but after 60, our bodies change. Slower digestion, reduced kidney function, and interactions with medications mean we need to be smarter, not scared. The key takeaway: it's not about cutting out fruit, it's about when and how you eat it. Pair with protein, eat during the day, avoid on an empty stomach, and always talk to your doctor if you're on medications. Aging with strength isn't about doing what you've always done. It's about adjusting with wisdom. You've made it this far, now let's keep you healthy, sharp, and independent for years to come. If this video made you think twice about your fruit habits, hit that like button to let us know. Share it with your family or friends, especially those over 60. And don't forget to subscribe for more practical, science-backed health tips every week. Thank you for watching. Take care of yourself, and we'll see you in the next video.